The rain fell like needles on the midnight asphalt. Leo tightened his grip on the throttle, the roar of his custom-built Harley slicing through the silence of the sleepy town. His leather jacket, soaked and heavy, stuck to his skin. He didn't mind. He liked the sting of cold. It reminded him he was still alive, even if barely. He wasn't supposed to be here. He had promised himself he would never return to this cursed place, to the town that took everything from him. But promises are like mirrors around Leo. Easy to break, especially when you're running from the law, $1 million bounty on your head, and ghosts louder than your engine. Then he saw her, standing under the flickering light of a broken street lamp, her red hoodie soaked, hair clinging to her cheeks, arms crossed like she was holding herself together. She wasn't crying, not obviously, but Leo knew that look. It was the same look he had in the mirror every morning. Wounded, beautiful, dangerous. He hit the brakes. The tires skidded. She didn't flinch. Neither I. His voice was low, edged with the roughness of whiskey and too many sleepless nights. She looked up. Her smile was small, almost apologetic. "I don't even know where I'm going," she said. "Perfect," Leo replied. "Neither do I." Leo didn't ask questions. He never did. Questions led to attachments, and attachments led to pain. But as the girl slid onto the back of his bike, her arms slowly wrapping around his waist, something about the way she held him, hesitant, as if she wasn't sure she deserved to be held by anything warm, broke something in him. They rode in silence, the wind washing away the noise in their heads. The road outside town curved into the forest like a forgotten vein, slick with rain and memories neither of them dared speak. After 15 minutes, she tapped his shoulder. "Here," she said softly. Leo pulled over near a half-burnt bus stop covered in graffiti. She slid off, but didn't walk away. She stood there, hugging her arms, teeth clenched as if she was fighting something inside. "Thanks for the ride," she said without looking at him. "Where's home?" Leo asked, even though he knew the answer would be a lie, or worse, nothing at all. She smiled again, that same sweet, heart-aching smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Wherever I'm not being followed." And there it was, the fracture, the hint of something darker underneath her soft voice and gentle face. Leo had seen that smile before, from girls in hiding, from people with blood on their shoes and guilt in their pockets. But there was something else in her, something he didn't understand yet. "What's your name?" he asked. "Does it matter?" she replied, eyes finally meeting his. "It does if I'm thinking about turning around and asking you to ride with me a little longer." She paused. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the zipper of her hoodie. "Sarah," she said, "but if you're smart, you'll forget it." Leo gave a half smirk. "Lucky for you, I'm not that smart." The motel was barely standing. Neon lights buzzed like dying insects, and the "no vacancy" sign flickered between truth and a lie. Leo tossed the key onto the cracked wooden nightstand as Sarah stepped inside, water dripping from her hoodie onto the dusty floor. "This place haunted?" she asked, only half joking. "Probably," Leo muttered, pulling off his wet jacket and tossing it over a chair. "But ghosts are the least of my worries." The room smelled like cigarettes, cheap pine air freshener, and regrets. Sarah didn't complain. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the rain through the broken blinds like she was searching for something. Or someone. "You hungry?" Leo asked, lighting a cigarette. "I've been living off vending machines and guilt for the past week," she replied. "So yeah." Leo stepped out to grab food. When he returned, she was in the same spot, hoodie off, revealing a faded white tank top, and something else, a scar. It ran across her right shoulder, pink and ugly, like a brand. Leo said nothing at first, just handed her the sandwich and sat on the floor with his back against the wall, keeping distance. She ate in silence, until finally, "You're not going to ask?" He looked up. "About the scar? About anything. I figure you'll tell me when you're ready." She chuckled, dry, bitter. "No one's ever waited for me to be ready. Not my mom. Not my ex. Not the man who gave me this." Leo's jaw tightened. He crushed his cigarette in the ashtray without a word. Sarah leaned forward, hair falling over her face. "I don't trust people. I lie without meaning to. I run even when no one's chasing me. I smile so no one knows I'm screaming inside. Her voice cracked. And I don't deserve this night. Or you. Leo didn't move, but his eyes softened. You think I'm some kind of savior? He said. I've got bodies behind me, Sarah. Not metaphorical ones. Real ones. I've hurt people. Burned bridges. I've been hunted for 5 states, and I sleep with a knife under my pillow. He stood, stepped closer. So don't put me on a pedestal. I'm just a guy who saw someone standing in the rain and didn't want to leave her there. Their eyes met. For a second, everything was still. And then she leaned forward slowly, carefully, like testing the edge of a cliff before jumping. Leo didn't stop her. The rain had stopped, but the cold inside the motel room hadn't. Sarah was asleep, curled up under the thin motel blanket, her face calm, but her fingers clenched tight, like she was still holding on to something in a dream. Leo sat by the window, one hand on the grip of a half-burned cigarette, the other resting on the small pistol tucked beneath his waistband. He hadn't slept. He rarely did. The motel was too quiet, the kind of quiet that crept under your skin and whispered that something was wrong. Then came a knock. 3 soft raps. Even. Measured. Familiar. Leo froze. That wasn't a drunk neighbor. That wasn't a staff check-in. That was a message. He stood up slowly, his body tense like a coiled spring. He moved toward the door in complete silence, hand gripping the cold steel of the pistol tighter. He didn't open it. Not yet. Who is it? He asked, voice low, sharp like a blade. Silence. Then a voice. Rough. Deep. Poison wrapped in velvet. You really thought you could disappear, Leo? Leo's eyes narrowed. Rico. The voice belonged to Rico, the one guy from his past Leo hoped had burned in the fire he left behind. But apparently, ghosts learned how to walk again. Leo yanked the door open, pistol raised. But there was no one there. Only a knife, driven into the wood of the doorframe, holding a folded piece of paper. He pulled it free and read. 1 girl. 1 price. Dead or alive. Healer Boy can't save her this time. Reaper Syndicate. The cigarette fell from Leo's lips and hit the floor. They knew. They knew Sarah was with him. Moments later, he closed the door, locked it, bolted it. His hands moved fast, throwing clothes into a duffel, checking weapons, counting ammo. Sarah stirred on the bed. Leo? What's going on? We have to go, he said sharply. Why? What happened? He turned to her, eyes darker than she'd ever seen. They found us, and they're not here to ask questions. Sarah sat up, her voice shaking. How? How could they know? Leo paused. Because someone's watching, or someone talked. And whoever's after you, he held up the note, is working with people who used to ride with me. Sarah went still. Her face paled. They're here for me. Leo threw her jacket at her. No, they're here for both of us now. The night was too quiet. Leo hated quiet. Quiet meant something was off. It meant the world was waiting to explode. The engine of his Harley rumbled beneath him, the growl of the bike cutting through the stillness of the road like a predator on the hunt. Sarah was holding on tight behind him, arms wrapped around his waist, her fingers trembling. He didn't blame her. They were both running now. They didn't speak. Not until the neon lights of a gas station flashed in the distance. You should have left me, Sarah's voice came, strained against his back. Leo didn't turn his head. His eyes stayed locked on the road ahead. Not how I'm built, he muttered. Sarah's grip tightened. They'll kill you because of me. Leo let out a humorless laugh. Baby, they've been trying to kill me for years. You just happen to be a good reason to make it personal. The wind whipped against their faces as they sped into the station's lot. The gas station looked as abandoned as everything else in this godforsaken place. Rusted pumps, cracked windows, the faint hum of a broken light. Perfect for laying low. Or for a trap. Leo's instincts flared. Stay on the bike, he said, voice low, eyes scanning the shadows. What do you mean? Sarah started, but he didn't wait for her to finish. He grabbed his gun from under his jacket, tucked it into the waistband, and strode toward the station, every step calculated. His boots clicked on the concrete, the sound way too loud in the silence. He reached for the door handle to the little shack. Bang! The glass shattered, the bullet ricocheting off the doorframe just inches from his face. He dove for cover behind a gas pump, heart pounding, pulse quickening. Sarah screamed, panic rising in her voice. Another shot, this one closer. Too close. Leo returned fire, his shot hitting the figure ducking behind a nearby car. A man, dressed in black, his face hidden by a helmet. Reaper Syndicate. Stay down, Leo shouted. He slid from cover, getting a better shot, as more gunfire rained down around him. He fired again, and the man dropped. Another goon gone, but more were coming. They always did. Sarah's voice was muffled, frantic. Leo, what's going on? I'll explain later, he yelled, returning fire as he darted between pumps. There was no time to waste. They had to move. Leo grabbed Sarah's wrist and pulled her off the bike, yanking her toward the exit. You're not running from this, Leo. Sarah shouted. They'll never stop coming. Leo ignored her, focusing on the road ahead, heart hammering in his chest. We make them stop, he growled, or we'll burn this place to the ground first. Understood. Back on the road. They sped off again, their bodies close, their hearts pumping with adrenaline, the roar of the Harley drowning out everything else. Sarah's arms tightened around Leo's waist, but this time, Leo could feel the fear radiating off her. He could sense it in the way she clung to him, her chest pressed tightly against his back. After several miles of nothing but the sound of engines and the cold, dark road ahead, Sarah spoke again. You were right, she whispered, her voice shaky. They found me because of what I know, but I didn't tell you the whole truth. Leo's grip on the handlebars tightened, his eyes narrowing. What truth? Sarah hesitated, her breath catching in her throat. They aren't just after me, Leo, she said, voice strained. They want you too, and they put a bounty on your head. Leo's heart stopped for a beat. His grip on the handlebars almost slipped. He didn't say anything. The silence between them felt heavier than before. He could hear the thundering of his own pulse, and for a moment, he wondered if he'd ever outrun the ghosts of his past. Maybe this was it, the end. But then, as the horizon began to open up in front of them, Leo's jaw set. He wasn't going down like this. Not without a fight. He glanced back at Sarah, eyes burning with resolve. Guess we got a few more people to bury then. Nightfall and a deal with the devil. The road was endless. The bike's engine roared, cutting through the night like a beast on the hunt. Leo's hands gripped the handlebars, knuckles white with the pressure. His mind raced, calculating, assessing. Every mile they put between themselves and the Syndicate was another chance they might not have tomorrow. Sarah didn't say a word. She was silent, her face pressed against his back, her hands clutching him like he was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. But Leo knew the truth. He wasn't keeping her safe. Not from the Syndicate, not from her own past. It wasn't long before they reached a small town on the outskirts, a place where no one asked questions and no one cared about strangers. It was a place Leo once knew all too well. A place where he had a connection. The Hideout, 2:13 a.m. The small, rundown bar smelled of whiskey and stale smoke. Leo stepped through the door, the sound of his boots echoing across the wooden floor. The dim light overhead cast shadows over the empty tables. The place practically deserted except for a few locals nursing drinks at the counter. Leo walked up to the bartender, an older man with a thick beard who barely acknowledged him as he slid a glass of whiskey across the bar. Jack, Leo said quietly, his voice low. Jack's eyes flickered up, recognition sparking immediately. He wiped his hands on a rag, leaning in closer. You're a long way from home, Leo, Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. Leo didn't have time for small talk. I need information, and a place to lay low for a while, Leo said, keeping his voice steady. I'm not here to ask for favors. Just need a little help. Jack studied him for a moment, the gears turning in his head. He then glanced over at Sarah, who was standing near the door, arms crossed, her eyes darting around like she was ready to run at the slightest movement. What's this? Jack asked. A kid with baggage? Leo's jaw tightened. She's not the problem. The Syndicate is. Jack's eyes narrowed. Syndicate, huh? You know what that means, don't you? Leo didn't respond. I've got a safe house, Jack muttered, finally relenting. But if you're going to be staying, I need a favor in return. Leo's gaze sharpened. What kind of favor? Jack leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous tone. There's a guy in town, Vincent. Runs with the Syndicate. Deals drugs. Gets information. You take him out. I'll keep you hidden. Leo stared at him for a long moment, the weight of the decision heavy in his chest. Done, Leo said. The deal, taking out the target. By 3 a.m., Leo and Sarah were parked outside a small, unmarked building on the edge of town. The windows were dark, the place eerily quiet. Leo had gone over the plan 100 times in his mind. Vincent was known for being careful, but he wouldn't be expecting an attack this fast. They moved quickly, silently, as they approached the back entrance. Leo signaled for Sarah to stay low as he crept around to the side of the building. Inside, they could hear muffled voices, the unmistakable sound of a conversation happening in the next room. Leo's breath slowed as he pulled his gun from his waistband and checked the chamber. They weren't here for anything but Vincent. Leo kicked the door in. Freeze! Leo shouted, his gun aimed at the man sitting behind a desk, a phone in his hand. He looked up in shock, his face pale. Vincent's eyes flickered to the window where his men were waiting, but Leo was faster. One shot, Vincent was down. A spray of blood hit the wall behind him. Let's go, Leo said, turning to Sarah. We've got a place to be. They didn't waste any time. As they exited the building, a car screeched to a stop in front of them. 2 Syndicate enforcers jumped out, guns drawn. It was a trap. Leo shoved Sarah behind him as bullets rang out, slamming into the wall beside them. Leo dove to the side, rolling to the ground and firing back. The enforcers didn't stand a chance. Leo's aim was true. One went down with a bullet in his chest, the other with a shot to the head. Sarah was frozen, her face pale with fear. Leo grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the car, shoving her inside. Drive, he barked. The tires screeched as they peeled out of the parking lot, leaving the chaos behind them. A price to pay. The car sped through the night like a shadow on wheels, the streetlights blurring as they passed in streaks of yellow and white. Leo kept his eyes fixed on the road ahead, knuckles tight on the wheel, teeth gritted. Every muscle in his body screamed for a break, but there was no time to rest. Not now. The Syndicate was closing in, and the clock was ticking. Where are we going? Sarah's voice was hoarse, still shaken from the ambush they barely escaped. She was pressed into the passenger seat, her hands clutching her seatbelt like it was the only thing holding her together. Out of town, Leo answered flatly, his jaw clenched. We need to lay low for a while. Jack said he had another place, but it's deep in the woods. We'll be off the radar. Are they following us? Sarah asked, glancing nervously through the rearview mirror. Leo didn't need a look. He could feel it, the buzz in the air, the weight of being hunted. Yeah, he said, but they're not going to get us. Not this time. He pushed the car faster, the engine growling as they tore through the desolate streets. But just as Leo thought they might have gotten some distance, his instinct screamed. Something was wrong. His eyes snapped to the rearview mirror. A dark sedan had appeared, creeping up behind them at an alarming speed. They're getting closer, Leo muttered under his breath, his foot pressing harder on the gas. The sedan behind them matched their speed, and suddenly, Leo knew they were trapped. They've got us, Leo growled, slamming his fist against the steering wheel. What do we do? Sarah gasped, her voice panicked. Leo didn't answer. He was already swerving to the right, heading off the main road into an abandoned stretch of highway. The tires screeched, smoke billowing up behind them as the car kicked up gravel. Leo's foot slammed the brake, sending the car into a sharp U-turn. The sedan was right there, too close. Leo's heart raced as he hit the gas again, swerving down a narrow path that led into a dense stretch of woods. Behind them, the sedan followed. They were closing in fast. Leo's grip on the wheel tightened. The headlights of the pursuing car grew larger. Too large. He didn't have time to think, only to act. Hang on, Leo shouted. With a violent jerk of the wheel, he sent the car careening toward the trees. The sedan followed, but they didn't see the bend in the road. Crash. A violent sound. Metal scraping against metal. Tires squealing. Leo's heart was in his throat as he slammed the car into reverse, trying to get away from the wreckage. The sedan's lights flickered, and then the headlights went dark. The car was pinned against the trees. But Leo knew this wouldn't stop them. "We need to go," Leo said quickly. "Now." He grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her out of the car. "No more running," Leo muttered, breath shallow. His hands were shaking, but he masked it. "We make our stand here." The forest, 3:15 a.m. The moon was barely visible through the thick branches of the trees as Leo and Sarah moved quickly through the woods, staying low, their feet crunching on leaves and dirt. Sarah's breaths came in short gasps, and Leo could feel her pulse racing against his side as they moved, ducking under branches and scrambling over roots. "We have to be ready," Leo said, his voice deadly calm. "They won't stop. Not until they have us." "We can't fight them all," Sarah whispered. "We don't have to," Leo replied, voice low. "We'll make them come to us. I know these woods." Sarah nodded, but the doubt was clear in her eyes. Leo set up a perimeter as quickly as possible, hiding behind trees, using rocks to create makeshift traps in case they tried to follow. But every move they made felt like a countdown. Every sound seemed like a footstep behind them. The final stand, 4:03 a.m. The silence of the forest was shattered when the sound of boots crunching on leaves echoed in the distance. They were coming. Sarah's body tensed, her eyes wide with fear. Leo's gun was already drawn, fingers steady on the trigger. He could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. The moment where they either survived or went down fighting. Suddenly, the first figure appeared, a man, dressed in all black, moving quickly through the trees. Leo's eyes locked on him. "Move!" Leo hissed, shoving Sarah to the side. He fired. The first shot rang out, hitting the man in the shoulder. He stumbled back but didn't fall. More figures emerged from the darkness, surrounding them. Leo's heart was hammering in his chest. This was it. "Get down!" Leo shouted at Sarah as he continued to fire, his shots fast and accurate, picking off one after another. But there were too many. Out of the corner of his eye, Leo saw a figure, a familiar face, emerging from the shadows. The person he never thought he would see again. "Rico." Leo froze, his fingers still on the trigger. "Rico," Leo said through gritted teeth, blood still rushing in his ears. "I should have known you'd be the one to finish this." Rico smiled, his gun raised. "You should have stayed gone, Leo. Now it's time to pay the price." The devil's deal. The air in the forest was thick with tension. Every breath felt like a countdown. Leo stood frozen as Rico stepped forward, gun in hand, eyes dark with a mix of hatred and something far more dangerous, pleasure. "You should have stayed gone, Leo," Rico sneered, his finger twitching on the trigger. "But no, you had to drag her into this." Sarah's eyes darted between the two men, her body trembling, but Leo could see the resolve slowly building within her. She wasn't backing down. She couldn't. Leo's eyes never left Rico. "You always were a coward," Leo spat, his hand still gripping the gun tight. "Hiding in the shadows, running the Syndicate's dirty work while I did the real fighting." Rico smirked. "You always thought you were better than me, Leo. But you made the mistake of thinking you could walk away. No one does. Not with us." Suddenly, gunfire erupted from behind them. Leo and Sarah instinctively ducked, the sound of bullets cracking through the air. The other Syndicate soldiers were closing in. "We're surrounded," Sarah whispered, fear creeping into her voice. Leo didn't need to hear it. He could feel it, but he wasn't about to give up now. He turned quickly, aiming at the closest soldier and firing. The man dropped like a rag doll, but more came rushing forward, closing the gap faster than Leo had anticipated. There were too many, and they were all armed. Sarah pulled out a knife she had tucked in her boot, her eyes flashing with determination. She rushed forward, taking out one of the Syndicate men with a quick strike to the neck, the blade cutting deep. Leo could hear the thrum of his heartbeat, drowning out the sounds of gunfire. Time was slipping away, and there was no room for mistakes. The final push, 4:30 a.m. The forest was a war zone. Sarah and Leo fought back to back, their movements synchronized despite the chaos. Leo's gun was a blur as he fired shot after shot, each one finding its mark. Sarah moved like a shadow, slicing through anyone who came too close. But Leo knew they couldn't keep this up forever. He looked up at the trees, scanning the dark silhouettes above them. That's when he saw it, the outline of a chopper. Reinforcements. They've got air support, Leo growled. We're screwed. Sarah's face turned pale as she followed his gaze. We can't outrun that. Leo clenched his jaw. He wasn't about to lose. Not like this. You keep fighting, Leo ordered, his voice like ice. I'll make sure we don't have to worry about that chopper. Sarah didn't hesitate. She dove back into the fight, her blade flashing in the moonlight. Leo's eyes locked on Rico once more. The bastard was grinning, clearly enjoying the chaos around them. Leo knew he couldn't leave this fight unfinished. Not now. You want me, Rico? Leo called out, his voice cutting through the noise. Then come and get me. Rico's grin widened, and without a second's hesitation, he lunged toward Leo, gun raised. Leo didn't wait. As Rico fired, Leo ducked and rolled to the side, his gun aimed at Rico's chest. The first shot missed, but the second shot was dead on. The bullet hit Rico in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground with a scream of pain. Leo didn't wait for him to recover. He charged, closing the distance and landing a crushing blow with his fist, knocking Rico unconscious. But Leo didn't stop there. He pulled out his gun, aimed it directly at Rico's head. His finger was on the trigger. For a split second, he hesitated. The man before him was once a friend, someone he had trusted. But that person was gone. The man who had betrayed him, the man who had become nothing more than an enemy, had to be dealt with. Leo pulled the trigger. The shot rang out. Rico was dead. The final escape. 5 a.m. With Rico down, Leo turned towards Sarah, who was breathing heavily, covered in blood, but standing tall. We need to move, Leo said urgently. The chopper is almost here. Sarah nodded, and they took off through the woods, using every ounce of energy they had left. They were still surrounded, but Leo wasn't going to let them die here. Not after everything they'd been through. As they pushed forward, they came to a clearing. In the distance, Leo saw an old cabin, hidden, abandoned, and perfect for what they needed. But getting her wasn't going to be easy. More Syndicate soldiers were closing in from every direction. We don't have much time, Leo said, glancing at Sarah. Stay close. With a roar, the helicopter appeared above them, its spotlight blinding. The Syndicate was closing in fast. This was their last chance. Leo grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her toward the cabin. They ran as fast as they could, but the sound of boots pounding the earth behind them told Leo they were on the clock. He fired back at the soldiers chasing them, buying them a few precious seconds. But the chopper was already hovering above, and the soldiers were closing in. Just as they reached the cabin, a shot rang out. It was a sniper hidden in the trees. Leo felt the searing pain in his side as the bullet tore through his flesh. He stumbled, but kept his feet under him, pushing Sarah inside the cabin with a forceful shove. Go! Leo shouted, his voice gritted with pain. No! Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. You can't. I'll be fine. Go! Leo pushed her again, forcing her into the safety of the cabin. He collapsed behind the door, bleeding heavily. He could hear the soldiers approaching, their footsteps growing louder. But then, just as they reached the clearing, the first sounds of sirens echoed in the distance. The police. Real police. They were coming. Sarah, her face pale and frantic, peeked out of the cabin just as the first police cars skidded into the clearing. The Syndicate soldiers scattered like rats, caught off guard by the unexpected intervention. Leo's vision blurred, the pain in his side unbearable, but he knew they had made it. They were alive. For now. By dawn, the Syndicate forces had retreated, and Leo had been patched up, his wounds dressed. The police were now questioning the remaining survivors, but Leo and Sarah had no intention of sticking around. They had lost everything to the Syndicate, but they had each other. They drove off into the sunrise. It wasn't over. Not yet. But for the first time, Leo allowed himself a breath of relief. They had survived, and no one could ever take that from them. See you next video.